Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Probation Station. This is your host, Mona Lisa Weber. Hope all is well. This morning, I am extremely excited to have a very special guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. And this topic is extremely important to me based on all the work that I do in the community as it relates to our youth, middle school, high school, and also the school to prison pipeline. As most of you know, I also mentor the incarcerated youth, and I have been experiencing and noticing a lot of the things that Dr. Umar Johnson speaks on. So it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have him here today on Probation Station, this beautiful morning here in South Florida. Dr. Umar Johnson, how are you?
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be back in South Florida. Looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow at the African American Research Library. Doors open at 11. Lecture at 1, book signing at approximately 3:30. So make sure you come on out. All children are free. Elders 65 and older are also free. Tickets are $20 online, drumarjohnson.com, 30 at the door. So get them online.
Get them online, you heard it? 30 at the door tomorrow. And talking about your book, we have it right here as well. So Dr. Umar, I have a huge concern with the school to prison pipeline. I've come to realize that you have several types of parents. So you have those that care a whole lot and don't have the time, care a whole lot, have the time, don't care at all, don't have the time, and don't care at all and have the time. I ask, how can you tell us or what are some concrete solutions with these areas of parents? How that they can implement, if not today, as soon as possible?
The first thing that I would say is when you're dealing with our parents, we have to look a little bit closer at the parent demographic. And what that means is when I look closely at the homes that our children come from, they're single-parented, female-headed households. And when I look closer at that female parent, I'm seeing a mother who not only has the responsibility of raising her children, but who also is dealing with a whole host of personal challenges that distract her from the immediate responsibility of raising her children. So for example, more than half of all single-parent African-American mothers live in poverty. So poverty is a barrier to focusing on the child. On top of that, at least half of them are dealing with a potentially fatal medical complication of their own. So whether that's breast cancer, cervical cancer, diabetes, hypertension, obesity. Then on top of that, more than 50% of them are dealing with psychological trauma, sex abuse from childhood that has never been healed. Some of them are dealing with domestic violence in the home right now. Some of them are dealing with family alienation from their mother, their father, their brothers and sisters who are not being as supportive as they should of a mother who's raising children. So I'm saying all that to say that in my experience, on the surface, it looks like they don't care. And for some of them, they don't. You definitely have that parent who could care less. If you want me to sign them in special ed so you can stop calling me, show me the paper. If you want me to put them on Ritalin so you can leave me alone, show me the paper. But I think that more often than not, you have parents who are being crushed by a whole entourage of personal, financial, emotional, social issues that make it difficult for them to focus on the job of being a parent. So in order to help the children, we're going to have to help the parents as well. If we don't heal the mothers, you'll never heal the household. You'll never have a better child coming to school.
Yeah, that's actually what I've been experiencing. How do we heal the mothers?
Great question. 3 things that I would say lead the list of interventions for mothers. Number 1, a happy mother is going to have more than enough energy and motivation and confidence to serve her children's best needs. So we have to improve the emotional health of Black mothers. That includes employment, That includes education. That includes housing. That includes healthcare. That includes community support. And too often when we deal with education and children, we always, not you and I, but the system itself looks at our parents as the be-all and the end-all in the success and failure of children. And I totally disagree with that approach. I believe that we need to embrace a holistic approach. So from an African cultural perspective, we always say what? It takes a village. Well, if it takes a village to raise a child, why is the parent considered to be the only stakeholder in their child's academic success? If it takes a village, what role are the politicians playing? If it takes a village, what role are the black businesses playing? If it takes a village, what role do the entertainers and celebrities play? And if it takes a village, most importantly, what role does the religious community play? Because if you ask me, I would blame the preacher 20 times more than I would blame the parent. Because the preacher has the resources, the preacher has the teacher, the preacher has the connections, the preacher has the leverage. We give the black church $14 million every Sunday in this country. $14 million every Sunday. Why are pastors never held accountable for low reading scores when half of your congregation is teachers? How are you not held accountable for emotional problems and ADHD problems when half your congregation are males? Well, why we don't have more independent schools in South Florida, in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, when you have churches that have this type of income coming in? So for me, we have to look at all the stakeholders and not just the parent, because here's the thing. Depression. Depression is the culprit. Most of our single mothers, added to the list of other things already mentioned, they're suffering from a debilitating depression. And that depression has a lot of causes. Some women are depressed, they don't have a man. Some women are depressed because they lost a man. Some women are depressed because of abuse, poverty, low self-esteem coming from their own childhood. And let us also keep in mind that that teenage mother is a unique challenge in and of itself, because with the teenage mother, you're dealing with a child who had a child while they were still a child. And whenever you're dealing with a child who had a child while they were still a child, you're dealing with two individuals, the child and the mother, both of whom did not get their emotional needs met growing up. So the mother is still at a state of emotional arrested development, because at 16, 17, I had to start nurturing another child when my parents hadn't finished nurturing me. You see? And so from a prevention standpoint, one of the things we have to do is we got to put it in the teenage pregnancy. It's killing us.
Yes. I was a teenage mom.
It's killing us. And one of the problems in the black community is that we've been doing some things so wrong for so long, they're now normal. Teenage pregnancy is one of them. In fact, it doesn't even have, when's the last time you've seen, unless you probably had it, a conversation about teenage pregnancy? It's so normal, it doesn't even get attention no more. That's what they do. It's almost like black on black fratricide. If you notice, they may talk about the outcomes of black on black male fratricide, but they don't talk about black and black male fratricide as an issue in itself, because no one's concerned if black men take the lives of black men. Just like you don't hear no conversations on black suicide.
Right.
Black male suicide is at a higher rate than black male homicide. Now, more black men kill black men. Okay? But if you look at the percentage of black men who commit suicide and black women, it has consistently going up. In fact, since 1980, we've had an 800% rise in young black men killing themselves, taking their own life. I have yet to see a show, a special, an article that focused on black self-annihilation, which is the suicide. But I really think that in helping out single mothers, we have to empower them with a positive motivational approach. If we're going to come with a be accountable, it's all your fault, you should have never had these kids and now they're here, so you better take care of them, we'll never get them. Because we're looking at the mother as the problem, as opposed to someone who is being beset by problems. Right. So if we start removing the barriers to mothers, they will do a better job being mothers. And I'm going to stop here. Being a former school administrator, charter school, I can tell you that the way parents are treated when they come in, black parents, is not very welcoming. we have to put this in a historical context. If we go back to the 60s, okay, we will see that during school desegregation, which really didn't complete until the 70s, although it began in 54 with Brown, you really didn't get school deseg until the mid-70s when they created special ed. In fact, one of the reasons they created special ed was to make it easier for white public schools to swallow the integration of the black children. So you must take them, but you can segregate them in your school to say that they're retarded or learning disabled. So special ed was the out, and it is still the out. But anyhow, when black parents go into the school, okay, we're not treated like parents or adults. The way I've seen teachers talk to black mothers, the way I've seen principals talk to black mothers, they treat them almost as worse as their own children. So why would I go somewhere where I know I'm not wanted? And you must also keep in mind that when the black mother goes into the school and meets with the teacher, do you know what's going on here? You have a collision of separate worlds. Poverty meets wealth, white meets black, educated meets uneducated, and even if the parents are highly educated, the bias and arrogance of racism in and of itself is enough to deter you from wanting to get involved. I'm gonna be honest, and I want everybody to hear me. 99% of the public and charter schools in America don't want parent participation. They don't want it. I know this for a fact. They don't want it. Because if you're in the school, you see what I do. If you're in the school, you're going to challenge some of the things we have in place. I don't want you there. I am a white female with a doctorate from Harvard. I am a career teacher. I am National Teacher of the Year. You a poor black working class mother, and you're going to come and tell me that I'm the reason your son is not learning, not him? Do you see that potential conflict? They don't want parents there. That's why they schedule meetings at times they know you can't come. Why are you having a home and school meeting 10 o'clock on a Tuesday?
Right.
These parents got jobs. You don't want them there.
And that was one of the questions that I was going to ask. But also just reverting back a little bit to the teenage pregnancy, right? So a very short period, I went ahead and mentored some teenage young ladies who were pregnant mothers, 12 to about 17 years old. Mm-hmm. And I had to actually leave because of all the red tape. They weren't discussing things like, sexual intercourse, the stuff that they're already doing because, they're underage. Mm-hmm. So my question was, okay, they're underage, but they're still participating in sexual activity. So why aren't these methods really been spoken about to these young ladies? Because they're sleeping with multiple men. You see what I'm saying? So it's like there's so much red tape in organizations that are supposedly saying that they're trying to help, but they never get to the core issue of showing love, affection, attention to these young ladies and empowering them. So I've been experiencing a lot of different challenges because everywhere I go, I'm coming pure from the heart. I know what the issues are. I know how to deal with these youths, but yet the red tape is like drowning us. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely frustrating. And at some point, I'm like, this is kind of hopeless. I don't really know because it's such a huge picture.
But here's the contradiction in that. Not for you, but for the system, for us as a people. We could do a much better job serving our community, our children, our boys, our girls, our teenage mothers, our single mothers, our fathers, if we could organize outside of the system. The problem
that would be so dope.
Is the resources that so many of us want are connected to the system.
Yes.
So because we can be so thirsty for that dollar, we'll spend years within the system trying to fight just so we can access the cash, having been in there 10, 20 years only to find out later that you were not making optimal use of your time because your priority was the money, not the help. Now, working in the community, you got to work harder. Because, see, the system does have some resources. That's why parents will participate. See, I had to come to this meeting in order to get this.
Right.
In the community, you have no way to really hold them accountable except for the love of their child. So it makes the work 20 times harder. But it's the only way to do it. It's just like when you spoke earlier, before we were on air, you said, what's the solution to the miseducation machine? How do we stop the psychoacademic Holocaust. The solution is real simple. Real simple. Build your own schools, which is totally within our ability to do. We're $2 trillion people, almost. Last year, we spent $2 billion on Air Jordans, $600 million on McDonald's, $9 billion on weave and perm. What else did we get? $4 billion on alcohol and booze. This is Black America. What you spend on hair, 25% of the countries in Africa don't even have that budget to operate on for the whole year for a country of millions. What we spend on sneakers is greater than the gross domestic product of half the islands in the Caribbean. We're literally spending the budget of nations on hair, sneakers, food, and alcohol. So you know what our issue is? Values.
Right.
Our values. It's not about we need more money. No, we don't. No, we don't. We have what we need. We don't want to sacrifice the things that we want for the things that we need. We bought twice as many Mercedes-Benzes in 2016 as white people. We bought twice the number of Mercedes-Benz as white folk in 2016. But yet we have less than half of their wealth. So what is it about the African American in the Mercedes? Is that something that has to do with our culture? It's a status symbol. And since the beginning of time, people who are not wealthy have always been addicted to the idea of looking like they are. And so the brokest black person wants to look like the richest white person and will put themselves into debt in order to protect the social image. That's our priority. That's our priority. At the end of the day, the black community really doesn't care about its future. And as a result of that, it doesn't care about its children. So the way you change this is you have to raise a revolutionary generation of African children. You have to build schools. And I'm not just talking about reading, writing, math, and no. Teach them how to navigate racism. Teach them how to build their own business. Teach them to build in trades. Teach them African-centered spirituality and culture. Agricultural science. The skills that allow you to pay the bills and also take care of your family. What public school is not teaching is what our children need. They're not teaching them how money works. Right. They're just telling them the whole purpose of school is to get into college.
Right. It's a very robotic mentality. It's a very robotic
we exist
mentality.
so we can get to college.
Right. And it's so frustrating because it all derives from our mindset. Okay, so how do we change that mindset? Like, it's everyone's so brainwashed. Like, we continue to talk about the same things over and over and over again. Me locally here, the same thing over and over again. But to have someone really go ahead and be like, okay, I'm going to take it and I'm going to go ahead and apply it and I'm going to change and I'm going
Here's
to.
the problem with change.
It's like, I feel like it's.
If you look at anyone who has brought significant change in the community, 95% of the time, they control the people in that community. From a negative standpoint, Adolf Hitler controlled Germany. Mao Zedong controlled China. You see, Ho Chi Minh controlled Vietnam. You can change your people when you can control their behavior. The problem with the black community, we have no systems of control. You don't have one. The church has a system of control because people believe that they need Jesus, okay, in order to be successful. And the pastor is the gateway to Christ. The imam is the gateway to Muhammad. You see, so there's a mechanism of control there. The black community has no mechanism of control. There's nothing we have in place that would make a black person want to say, I want to be down with the cause. In comparison, if I'm a Chinese kid, oh, I'm going to be down with the Chinese cause. If I'm a European Jewish kid, I'm going to be down with the Jewish cause. If I'm an Arab, I'm going to be down with the Arabian cause. You know why? My people can employ me. My people can put me through college. My people have their own colleges. You see that?
Yes.
If my mother is homeless, my people can put us in a home. If my daddy don't have a job, my pastor can find him one. In other words, there are obvious rewards that come with being committed to the Chinese culture. There's obvious rewards that come with being committed to the Jewish culture. Give me one reward. Give me one reward that would motivate a black child in 21st century America to be down with the black struggle. There's not a single one. We can't give them jobs. We can't get them out of jail. We can't stop them from going to jail. We can't get these young brothers no mentors unless we're paying them. Which, by the way, disgusts me, because when I speak to pastors about why we don't have more fatherhood programs, mentorship for the young men, they're always telling me we can't find funding. Right. You are a church that receives millions a year. You're telling me you don't have no program for the fatherless boys because you can't find funding. So you mean to tell me you got to get paid to spend time with our young men? This is coming from the church. Do you know anywhere we can get some funding? I used to have a Pan-African Boy Scout program. Not through the Boy Scouts of America, but my own. I didn't need to get paid to spend time with black folks. But you got churches who ain't going to do nothing to help black folks unless they get paid.
And it's really difficult because I've been rolling with several black men who come in with me every single week into the facility to mentor. And we've sat down and we've had conversations about it being really exhausting, because when you have just 2 or 3 in a pot, and I'm talking about it's going on about 2 years now, you know, and they're fathers or husbands, and they're taking out a couple hours a week, but yet it's very difficult to get a team of men.
Yes.
You know, and I went to this meeting recently where it was funding involved, and in order to get grants with this particular organization, you can't even mention the word mentor to be able to get a grant. So not all, I'm not really sure who does or who doesn't, but there are grants out there, but if you mention mentor, they don't want to give you these grants because they understand, and this is just my opinion, they understand that if you get that mentor, that one-on-one connection with these youth, because I feel that's part of the solution as well, that one-on-one mentorship with the youth,
without question,
then we can really start killing the school to prison pipeline. You know, I've been able to love on our young boys and be able to get positivity out of them versus other adults who are always bashing them, calling them losers, calling them rejects, retards, and stuff of that nature. And that's something that I advocate and fight against. But that mentorship is one of the most important things specifically for our young black and brown boys.
You hit on something. The funding for these programs to stop the special ed to prison pipeline. The government is very clever in protecting its own best interests. And it'll spend billions on the prison system, millions on special ed, multi-millions on ADHD meds, but it may only spend a couple million on the preventive programs. So they'll throw money at the programs that matter, but they'll put billions behind the systems that cause the dysfunctionality. You see, and I think that we as a people have to understand, this is part of the solution. See, as a psychologist, school psychologist, we're always taught in psychology that if you conceptualize your client's problem wrong, you won't be able to treat them effectively. If you come to me for depression, and I conceptualize your depression to be the fact that you're a single mother, when the truth of the matter is your depression comes from the fact that you have a poor relationship with your mother, I've conceptualized the problem wrong. So anything I do to impact it won't even matter. It'll be a waste of time, money, resources. You have to conceptualize the problem. Why does this exist? What is the core cause? What do we need to change to get rid of it? And so when you deal with miseducation, we have to make sure we're clear in conceptualizing the fact that the schools are failing because they're designed to do so.
I can agree.
This is very important. Too often we conceptualize it, the teachers aren't being paid enough. Too often we conceptualize it, the fathers are in jail. Too often we conceptualize it, the textbooks are too old. Too often we conceptualize it as the kids only want to listen to gangster rap. All of these factors are relevant, but are they causes? No, they're contributing factors. The reason public school does not work is because it wasn't designed to work, And the reason 93% of the teachers are white women is to make sure it never works for our children. You can't show me a race on earth but us who would give the minds of their babies over to the women of their oppressors to get them out of the oppression. Show me anywhere in history, you can even use the Bible and the Quran, where a group of people overcame oppression by giving their children to the oppressor for liberation. You cannot, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely asinine to think that the racist middle-class white female of Broward County gives a damn about your son. Do you realize why segregation was even started? Segregation was started to keep the black man's phallus out of the white woman's orifice. That's why you got segregation. Because the white man, fearful of the black man's genetic predominance, knew that he had to keep his woman from being touched by the African man because the product of that union is another black child. That's why you even have white supremacy in the first place, to protect the weak gene pool of the European. So you're going to take the baby boy, and give him to the white woman to be properly educated. And you wonder why only 1 out of every 4 black boys in America graduates from high school today. 1 out of 4. We've had a 25% black male graduation rate for over 30 years. If only 25% of white boys graduated in America, the whole society would stop. They would tear it down and build it up. Because there's no way you can protect white supremacy with a 1 in 4 graduation rate. But for black boys, it's A-OK.
What is the fear as it relates to parents trusting? Because there's a huge distrust amongst our people.
We should. Oh, you mean each other or the system?
No, each other. Each other. So you mentioned earlier having our own schools.
Yes.
Some of our people don't trust us to have our own schools. They're always questioning, and
I know exactly.
Dr. Umar Johnson, the reason why I'm saying this to you because I'm going through it, and I know people that are going through it. I want to give a shout out to Miss Carissa, Dreamers Leadership Academy. She ran a beautiful academy this summer with about 10, 12 of our young black boys and young black women. Amazing sewing, artwork, criminal justice. I went in and taught a little bit of proactive criminal justice, and I was amazed. There's several leaders out here that are working on that, but there goes the trust. There goes the money, and well, I don't know, and what are they doing with the money, and what is this and what is that? So I always bring it back to some form of self-healing or changing of the mindset, because if I don't trust you, how am I going to give you my money and bring my child to your school and deal with all the issue goes so deep that sometimes I just sit here, I'm like, man, I'm done, because it is deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. The more you dig into it, the deeper it gets. So you got the moms in the households going through it. You got the lack of trust. You got our children that are just running buck wild. I often sit here and very often actually, and think about just baby step solutions, even if it's just 3 people at a time, because there's so many negative forces coming at us from all different angles that at some point, you know, there's only a few leaders out here in comparison to the amount of people that live in South Florida. And some of us are always getting attacked, or, you know, well, why are you doing this, and there's no hope, and don't worry about it. So we always have to try to keep ourselves uplifted, because sometimes even the leaders are not on one accord or in alignment. So now I always say, if the community cannot see the leaders in alignment, how do you expect them to follow us?
You bring up a good point when you deal with the crucible of black leadership, because we always talk about how we need to be organized as a people, but guess what? When we tell people to just join an organization, it don't matter which one, just join an organization. Do you know what that creates? That creates a plethora of organizations, none of which have a critical mass of membership to impact any problem that we're affecting. So you end up with 2,000 leaders, 2,000 organizations, and each of those 2,000 organizations got 2 people in them. So ultimately, see, the leaders are not organized with each other. How can you say you're organizing us when you're not organized with each other? Because of ego and petty differences. And let me be clear. The ego of the Negro, is one of our biggest obstacles to change. Because every Negro, male or female, thinks they're smarter than the rest, that their opinions should never be questioned, that their orders should never be criticized, and that anyone who disagrees with them is automatically their enemy. It is an immaturity that we have as a people where we do not value diversity of opinion. We want robots. You know who taught us that? The white man. That's not African-centered. One man on the top. I know everything. Everybody else just do what I say. And if you ever disagree with me, I either put you out this organization or better yet, I'll kill you. And we have examples of that throughout our history. So if we don't deal with that ego, we're not going to get anywhere. In the Black consciousness community, where I am, you see it all the time. It's all over YouTube. Brothers with a lot of information, but no wisdom. A lot of information, but no wisdom. And the problem in Black consciousness today is we think the information is the goal. The information ain't the goal. The information is a tool that will help you achieve the goal. So now, I don't want to implement what's in the book. I just want to know what's in the book. You see the difference?
Right.
I don't want to implement, I just want to know. I don't want to build no school. I just want to know why we should have one. I don't want to open no black bank. That's too much work. I got to go through paperwork and scrutiny, applications, raising money. I just want to know how to run it.
Because it's easier to talk than to implement and apply. What I'm noticing is, and it's so sad, because we are such a versatile, humans are extremely versatile.
Yes.
And we need to be thinking in compartments.
Mm-hmm.
So, several of my followers love you.
Mm-hmm.
Several can't stand you, right? I call you Mr. Controversy. And I'm okay with that because there's certain things that I may or may not agree on what you say, but my whole point and purpose is to learn how to deal with our youth in this particular interview, and that's why I follow you, because you have the brilliance, the intelligence, and the experience on dealing with our Black and brown youth, and that is what I care about. So I'm not going to X you out because you say something about this person or somebody. See, so our people are so tunnel vision that it's like, you're brilliant in so many areas, but because you say something that someone doesn't like, they're going to X you out. Well, that's their choice. That's fine. It is what it is. But for me, I'm one that applies, and I want to learn. And every day that I wake up, it's a new day for me to learn. So when you speak specifically about the youth, I'm all in because you're a Black man, and you deal with Black and brown boys and girls, and I really want to implement the solutions with the following that I have here in South Florida, with the experience that I have in South Florida, because for the most part, Probation Station, Mona Lisa, I'm pretty much trusted out here. So, which I'm very honored to. Thank you for all of those that tune in, listen, follow me, and stuff of that nature. But most people out here know that I am crazy about my youth, and just saving that mindset and watching them flourish and open up. Because that's what I've noticed. Like, when you give them the space to be who they are, brilliance. Oh my gosh, amazing. They're so adorable. I get so bent out of shape. I love it. But yet, when I face those adults, it's like...
Because the adults have already been conditioned. Let's look at the riots. The rebellions. And I just came from Detroit yesterday. And they have a wonderful exhibit on the Detroit Rebellion of the 60s in the Frank Wright Museum, which is our largest African-American museum in the country. Most of those rebellions were led by youth. if there were adults there, they were kind of supporting the youth, but they were not leading it. And there was a great contradiction that was exposed by those rebellions. And that contradiction was simply that the youth are not afraid of the power structure, but most of their parents are. This is where eldership is going to lose its value in our community. We're about to lose the respect that comes with being an elder if the adults do not reevaluate themselves. Because we are at a crisis moment where for the first time in history, the youth do not feel they can look to the elders for that leadership. I was at a seminar in Philadelphia, a community conversation, and a brother said, Dr. Umar, why don't the youth respect the adults anymore? And my answer was real simple. A child cannot trust a coward because a child's nature is still courageous. If you're scared of a white man, you might be 30 years older than me. I cannot come to you for counsel because you are afraid of that which needs to be torn down. You see that?
I agree completely.
And that's why our children, they're not being bothered with no adults. You just want to save your job, your business, your retirement, your car note, your white girlfriend, whatever you in.
Yeah.
And I need to tear this system down and bring justice to myself.
And these youths are, they on
And
it.
the sad thing, they need the wisdom that the adults have.
Yes.
They need it.
Yes.
But they can't even be patient enough to take that because who you are as a coward screams so loudly in their eyes that they can't even listen to what you have to say. So we have to heal that divide. The other thing about the hate and the detractors. In the conscious community, we have a lot of ideology. I represent the Garveyite camp, the RBG Pan-Africanism. That's me. I'll never be in the Nation of Islam, although I respect them, but that's not me. I'll never be a Moor, although I respect them. That's not me. I'll never be a God on earth, although I respect them. That's not me. I'll never be a Nawapian, although I respect them. That's not me. I'll never be a socialist, although I respect them. That's not me. But guess what? We do not have to believe the same thing in order to work together. We only have to agree on certain things.
Can you say that one more
Whether
time?
you Garvey, Noble Drew, Elijah, Dr. York, whoever you are, don't all of our children need education? Don't we all need jobs, protection, health care, a decent place to live? So your ideology has nothing to do with us working together to meet the needs of our community. But you know why we fight? I'm going to tell you why we fight. It ain't got nothing to do with our beliefs. That has nothing to do with it.
No.
The reason you have so much conflict amongst the ideologies is because nobody wants to do any work. And if I don't want to work, the best way to prevent myself from having to do any work is to cause conflict between the groups. Because as long as we're fighting, we're not collaborating. And if we're not collaborating, we're not building. It's not ideology, it's laziness.
I can completely agree with that on the local level. That is the biggest issue. It's easier to argue on Facebook. You'll spend 10 hours on Facebook going back and forth with someone.
And our people love it.
Yes.
We love sensationalism.
Yes, yes, yes.
When I do my videos, and I get a lot of love on my videos, but let me interject a moment of criticism to one of my haters.
It's over.
That view will jump from about 250,000 to 1 million in 10 seconds. You see that? So when somebody's dealing with your children, some of us involved. But the minute you start addressing some hate, the whole world will tune in.
We love it.
Our culture is based on conflict. Look at the most popular shows for black people, the reality shows. They're all conflict based.
Right.
Mama D, it's all black people. We love that. Think about it. There's not a single show that black people love that isn't conflict based. Name one. Hip hop. Let's take hip hop. If you're not beefing with somebody, your album don't sell.
Right.
There's only a few rappers who can put out an album without conflict, such as the Jay-Z, because he didn't conflicted enough. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's waiting. Yeah.
You see? Biggie and Pac love them to death. But what helped feed themselves was the conflict. And that's the basis of our culture. And we're the only culture in America who has conflict as the basis of culture. Every other culture has collaboration as the basis of conflict. Listen, there could be 10 Chinese living in your neighborhood. They don't know each other at all. How much you want to bet within a week they'll be working together? Within a month
they have a Chinese business association. Within 6 months, they're going to have a school for their kids. Because the culture dictates the interaction between its members. And we so far away from who we are, all we know is conflict and combat. The black man fighting the black woman.
And they love it. I say don't watch TV. I don't watch TV.
Oh, we shouldn't have any TVs in our home with growing children
Yeah.
at. The television is one of the white man's greatest inventions. After the Negro, we're the first. If there was to be an award given for the greatest invention in human history, it would be for creating the Negro. You have an organism, black folk, who work against their own best interests without even being paid to do so. Normally, you got to pay an agent to be an agent. You don't have to do that with us. We so full of hate. We will destroy anything that's for us just because. You know, people say, well, why do black people do this to each other? What's the reason? They don't need a reason. You're black. That's enough. It's like you walk into a room and somebody say, I don't like her. You ain't even opened your mouth yet. You ain't said a word. I don't like her. She ain't said nothing. She ain't looked your way. I haven't spoke, no conversation. I don't know what it is about her. Let me help you. She's black just like you. And we've been trained not to like each other. The most important function of a school is not education. The most important function of a school is socialization. Teaching the children how to work together as a community. That is the one thing that's missing from every school that teaches black children, and I would argue is also missing from many of our African-centered schools. You have to teach black people how to get along with black people, otherwise we'll never build self-sustaining communities. Think about it. Every Chinese kids can work with each other. Arabs, Jews. The only kids who cannot work with each other is black kids. I'm in the schools. I see them every day. Your sneakers are old. In the first grade, what you know about old sneakers? Your watch not real. Your nose too big. Your skin black. Your hair nappy. They wasn't born with this. Yeah, where they get these core beliefs at 6? They already know the value of money at 6. They get it from their parents. Which is why when I said, in my school, ultimately I wanted to be residential. A lot of people attached that. You know why I wanted to be residential? Because the self-hate is being taught in the house. Right. If you don't get our kids away from these toxic parents, you'll never fix this situation. Is it radical? You could say so. But I went to a residential school. Thousands of black kids go to residential schools. Why is it so radical? You know what's radical? Not that it's a residential school. It's radical because I'm going to be teaching them how not to be Negroes and how to be Africans, and that's what their parents don't want. Another core belief. We love white people more than we love ourselves. We black people love white people more than we love ourselves, but we will never end it. Do you know there's nothing a white man can do to you? And I'm speaking when I say you, us as a people, that would never lead you to second guess him. There's nothing a white person can do to a black person that would make you say, I'm done with you, I want nothing to do with you for the rest of my life. Nothing. They've already done it. Genocide. They created diseases, assassinations, police genocide, slavery. Do you know the white man has done the worst things you can do against black folk? And the first thing we'll say is I still love them because my Lord does not allow me to not dislike, to dislike anybody. That's sick. You don't have to hate. And I don't think we should teach hate. But you do have to be intelligent enough to know that dealing with this group of people here is not going to be in our best interest. But even if you like white folk, you should still have enough love for black folk to want to do something for yourself independently from them. So you see, as Garveyites, we don't let white folk join our organizations.
Okay.
It must be all African membership. Why? Well, for 2 reasons. Number one, if they really wanted to help us, do you know how much good they can do working amongst their own people to help us? You do not have to be in a black organization as a white person to help black people. Because the power and the change has to be made where? In your institution, in your power structure. There's nothing going on in this community group that you can add to that's going to change the system that you belong to. Work within your system. See, the real white liberal, black folks will never see you. A real white liberal, we would never even see a face. You know why? They're so busy working within the racist systems of their own society to bring change for us. The only reason why white folks come around black folks is they want to play white Jesus, the Savior, and we let them every time. Whenever they come in, they don't come in just to join. The president, the chair, the spokesperson, they want leadership. They want to be honored and worshiped. And guess what? We go right along with it. We honor and worship them. The reason they can't be there is because we have a white Jesus complex that makes us believe we need white people to help us, that we can't do nothing on our own. So even if the white person is well-meaning, they can't be at that table because we got to learn how to do it ourselves. There is a respect and a divinity and a sacredness that comes from knowing I did this myself. Take my school, FDMG. Every day I get a million emails. Why you don't just open up a charter school? You have all these credentials. You sort of Roland Martin, that coon. You know, you got all these credentials. Why don't you just open up a charter school? Because that's owned by the government.
Right.
If I open up a charter school, they're going to come with the homosexual studies. They're going to come with, you need to have more white teachers. I got to do Pledge of Allegiance, Christopher Columbus. No.
The red tapes, yeah.
No. This is me. So when we open up FDMG, which we will be doing by August 21st of 2018, when we open it up, we can say black people built this. No Grant, no Trump, no Obama, no city grant. We did this. We got to get back to showing black people who we are. And you cannot do that when you allow non-Africans to participate in your struggle. What is to be done for black people must be done by black people.
I completely agree. I completely agree. One thing that I have found, we don't think long term.
We don't.
There's no, you know, as others are creating, we are just putting a Band-Aid.
Yes.
You know, well,
Yes.
let's enable and let's do for right now.
Yes.
Let's enable and let's do for right now.
Short-term thinkers.
Short-term thinkers, and I feel like sometimes, you know, I'm left out of the loop because I'm a creator and I want to create long-term. I have a black son in America, so when I'm gone, I need him and my baby nephew, who now, since I've awoken, is of concern to me because my son's now in his 20s. So I wasn't awake back then, but now with my baby nephew is a whole different ballgame. He just turned 9 months and I'm already concerned about what school he's gonna go to and who's going to teach him and what he's gonna learn. So I'm just noticing that the creating, the creating process, we not really on it. Can we create and stop? Here you go, here you go.
But you mentioned Band-Aids. Why is it that we love the Band-Aid versus a permanent long-term solution?
Instant gratification.
Not only that, the long-term permanent solution requires sacrifice.
Oh no.
It requires money.
Wait a minute.
It requires commitment. And let me say, black leadership has helped us, unfortunately, get away from the sustained, long-term, protracted planning of the 60s, okay, by giving us a whole barrage of one-day revolutions. I love the Million Man March. I was there. Much respect to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But it was a one-day revolution. Al Sharpton's marches, one-day revolutions. Jesse Jackson's marches, one-day revolutions. Black Lives Matter marches, one-day revolutions. If you look, and I'm not condemning those things, they were necessary, but if you look at the civil rights movement, that wasn't no one day. The Montgomery bus boycott was 381 days. Not a Negro rode that bus. They said even the elders, their feet was bleeding. They was walking barefoot rather than get on that bus. Yes. What would happen if you go out here and told these Broward County Negroes that we boycotting the bus? They would look at you like you crazy and get 2 bus passes. They would get 2 bus passes. We don't have that type of commitment no more. We lack faith in ourselves and faith in each other. I don't have no faith that you can change. I have no faith that we can work out our differences. I have no faith that my people can overcome white supremacy. And do you know what the religious contradiction is of that? If I don't have faith in people who look like me, how in the hell can I have faith in a God when the God created me? Don't talk to me about no Jesus if you can't even work with other black folks. Because even Christ said, you will have to do works greater than me. He said that y'all got to do things greater than what I did. So if you ain't got no faith in your brother, how the hell you got faith in a man you never even seen? It's the independent schools. And you know what hurts me about this whole thing? It's not hard to teach our kids.
It's really not.
It's easy.
It's a bundle of love.
It's
actually.
easy.
It's a bundle of love. Like, it's just literally, and you know what? They know the real too. If you come and faking it or stuff of that nature, they will let you know and they will treat you as such. Because there's adults that are sometimes in my ear, you gotta watch out for them. You gotta watch out for those kids. You gotta watch out. They bad. They gonna lie on you. They gonna do this. They gonna do that. And for the life of me, I just don't see that. I don't see that.
I'll tell you like this, to enunciate your point. Black children are the best psychologists I've ever seen. They can do an evaluation on you in 10 seconds. When you walk in that room, they know within 10 seconds whether you're here to make a change or whether you're here to get paid. You follow me? Within 10 seconds.
I'm about to get teary-eyed.
And if they know that you're not there to help me, they will tune you out.
They will tune you out.
And you say, he can't learn how to read. Now look at this. Because the reading disability is the #1 most requested eval for black children. You know why he can't read? He wants to learn how, but his self-esteem is tied to his reading. And in order for him to try to build his reading skill, he got to trust that you're going to catch him if he falls.
Right.
I'm not jumping in 20 feet of water unless I know you're going to catch me if I start to drown. So when that black boy knows that white racist middle-class teacher from Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood and Dade County, when he knows she don't care about me, I'm not even going to try. Because in trying, my self-esteem may get more damaged than it already is. Right. That's why we got so many black boys diagnosed with reading disability. Not because they can't learn how to read, but because they know you don't care enough to catch them when they make the mistakes.
And I can vouch for that 100%. What I would do was I would take them aside. You see what I'm saying? Because they like the whole little side thing when they treat them special. And it's like, okay, young brother, young sister, if you're having difficulty, you know, let's speak about. And they get like this huge smile on their face because they know that you actually care. When I posted the flyer, I got like a whole bunch of questions for you. So real quick, we can run through a few, but I also wanted to, I got some inboxes and a quick scenario as a teacher was speaking to one of the brothers out in the community. So as we end the show, let's get some questions in. Because if not,
we can do it.
I would hear it.
And we want to remind everybody, Dr. Umar Johnson is here. Come out tomorrow. Broward County African American Research Library and Cultural Center, Sistrunk Boulevard. That's tomorrow, September 30th, Saturday morning. Doors open up at 11. Lecture begins at 1. Book signing will be from 3. Come and get your copy of this book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, the Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. It's the only book ever written by a black school psychologist that teaches black parents how to fight back legally and win against the special education and ADHD machines without no lawyer. So come on out. It's the Black Parent Boot Camp tomorrow. African Latinos, you come on out as well. You're still part of the family. Come on out. Bring the children. All the children 17 and younger are free. Elders 65 and older are free. Get your tickets, drumarjohnson.com. If you need to text me, you can do so at 215-989-9858. And let me say this before we do the first question. Every Tuesday, I have a free Black Parent teleconference. Any questions about your children, you can call in and get free answers. It's free. Tuesday, 6 a.m. until 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that number for the Tuesday morning Black Parent teleconference, which I call the Underground Railroad, is 857-232-0158. 857-232-0158. And the access code is 870-864-POUND. 870-864-POUND. But again, my cell, 215-989-9858.
Thank you so much, Dr. Umar Johnson. I appreciate that. Let's see. Questions.
Give me the crazy ones. Throw out some of the crazy ones.
Okay. This lady right here, she has her own daycare and school in Lauderdale, Fort Lauderdale area. She says, are these school curriculums, assessments, and statewide tests really helping our students or placing early labels on our children? Basically setting them up for failure?
Well, first of all, she needs to be there tomorrow. But let me answer that question. It's about setting them up for failure. Let me answer this. If you remember back in the 50s and 60s during the civil rights movement, we were fighting to tear down the walls of segregation. If they didn't want your child to go to a certain school, they would say no blacks, whites only, right? Let's take University of Florida. They didn't want no black kids. No blacks allowed, that's it. After segregation fell with the Civil Rights Bill of 64, it was no longer politically correct to say no blacks. You had to come up with another way to keep them out without saying you're doing it because they're black. And it became the test. The test is the new Jim Crow sign. The test does the same thing Jim Crow did, but instead of letters, they use numbers. So the University of Florida, instead of saying, I'm just using them as an example, instead of saying no blacks, they'll say, if you don't have a 1600 on your SAT, you need not apply. So now if I want to keep black people out, I look at the average test score of black children in that area, and I just raise my acceptance score a little bit higher. And it does the same job that the Willie Lick sign does. This is how they keep black kids out these private schools. They say, what? We have an entrance exam. In order for your son to come to this private school in Dade County, Broward County, he has to take the test. You take your son to the test. They come back, we're sorry. He scored below basic. In order to come to this we hate black people private school, he needs to score at least 70th percentile. You're like, my son was one of the top kids in the district. They chose a test that was normed on white kids that they knew would discriminate against black children based on culture and working vocabulary. I'm going to say it again. The weapons of the test are the vocabulary words they use and the cultural concepts that they introduce. And that's why white kids score 15 points better than the black kids. They're not brighter than our kids, but they're using words and cultural concepts that are foreign to the black child.
Can I just say this? Because I remember being in high school, and I was usually like an A student or whatever, but I was horrible at taking
Me
tests.
too!
I
Me
was horrible
too!
at taking, and I'm sitting here, and even when I was in college, because I have my degree in psychology with a minor in criminal justice, and I'm like, okay, I got straight A's, but I can't pass the test. So I always knew there was something there, but I was like, that just really felt uncomfortable.
And they fell us on purpose. I'm going to give you a true story really quickly. I was speaking down in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. I was invited by the Rasta community. In fact, the first time I came to Fort Lauderdale, it was the Rasta community. It was His Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie's Earth Day. I was the keynote. So I spent a few days after that enjoying myself. I met an elder. He was an educator from New York, but St. Croix was his hometown. Guess what he told me? He said he took the New York State teacher's exam. This was like in the 70s, he said, 60s. They told him he failed it. He said, Dr. Umar, I don't think I was doctor then. He said, Brother Umar, I knew I had passed that test, so I decided to do some research. This is a true story straight from his mouth. He went back to the New York State Department of Education, had them dig up his teacher's exam, and guess what? He actually passed it when they said he failed it. They made an error on the scoring, and I'm going to interview him in my documentary. Yes, we have proof that they fell in black teachers who really passed the test. Because public education must be under the control of the white women to make sure the black boys fail.
That's powerful and, of course, believable. Let's see, another question. How do we continue to reach our youth? And this is a teacher in Dade County, and he deals with a lot of the inner city youth.
Okay.
How do we continue to reach our youth when it's us, the teachers, versus broken single-parent homes and the elements, i.e. the community they live in or just their current living situation as a whole? And these are
I would never, ever want to appear that I am belittling the role that parents play in the education of their children. Parents can really facilitate higher learning when they are involved and engaged in the children's lives. I never want to appear to be reducing the impact of parenting and education. But I want to be clear about something. When I was principal and assistant principal, and when I open up FDMG, I make it very clear to all my teachers. I don't care if there's one parent or two or none. I don't care if they poor, welfare, drug dealing, drug addict. I don't care. In this school, if the children do not learn, it is our fault. We have to stop trying to pass the buck to a single parent black mother who already got enough going on in her life. If you don't believe you can teach, why did you accept that job? This is what I tell, if you telling me you cannot teach this child unless the mother is involved, why are you being paid on the back of this baby where you don't believe you can do your job? You shouldn't be there. Marva Collins. Marva Collins, the great Marva Collins, one of the greatest educators we ever had in Chicago. She could care less about parent participation. And look what she turned out. The Marcus Garvey School in Los Angeles, you have examples of great educational systems that achieve despite lack of parent participation. So do you really want to reach this child, or are you looking for scapegoats? At my school, I could care less if the parents are involved. I'm going to make them. But let's say something happened. A child could lose their parents. What if they die? So what do you say? The kid whose parents died cannot be reached, cannot be taught? Stop making excuses. You either care or you don't. And to be honest with you, to some degree, the way our parents think and the psychosis that a lot of them are under, it might be best that some of them not be involved. You follow me on that? You work with something like, I wish they would go.
Right, yeah.
Because the child wants this. I need you to get out the way.
I need you. It's so true. That's what I am identifying, that we just need somebody parents. Can you get out the way? Let me just move.
I got this. You can go home, go get your blunt, fall back.
And keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
I spoke at a conference last week at a church, and I told them, if you can't speak to your children, you can just bring them. I need y'all to get out
the way.
The way.
You are contaminating the culture of my classroom. Fall back. Keep it moving. Stop looking for excuses. That's not who we are. We got to stop that. Listen, I regularly go and speak to children, and I get the worst ones, emotionally disturbed, juvenile. They will sit there for hours, and then when it's time to go to lunch, you know what they will say? These are the ADHD boys. They sit there for hours, and then when it's time to go to lunch, guess what they say? We don't want to go to lunch. We want to keep going with Dr. Umar. The white teachers just look up, oh my God, we've never seen this. Because they know I care, and the content is relevant. That's another one. A boring ass teacher is going to have a class full of ADHD because your ass is boring.
Right.
Tighten up them lesson plans.
And they don't want to change. It's so traditional. So like in the classrooms or the interactions that I've had, I do like mock trials. They're interested in, posing as state attorneys and defense attorneys, and they're learning about case numbers, and they're like interacting and they're combating each other.
They can use their own mind to impact the product.
Right. And
no, just sit here, Columbus.
Right.
Jefferson.
Right.
Nobody want to hear that all day.
And they like interaction.
Yes.
They like to make things. And
social
they like to
learning theory says that children learn better when they're allowed to get up and interact. This is white people's research. So if social learning says that children learn better when they're moving, why we still got them in church? Because the church is starting the first schools. So school operates like church. You sit here and the pastor go. A white, boring ass white church. That's what school is. And then the minute he can't sit still, you want to call him ADHD.
And emotionally disturbed and a whole bunch of other stuff. So.
Absolutely. And the irony is what? They drugging up black boys with the same chemicals that sent their father to jail. Ain't that interesting? My father is in jail serving 10 years for selling crack, but you'll give it to me so I can sit still? Something's wrong with that. If drugs is bad for everybody. You can't say they're bad for people to sell them, but it's okay for kids to take them. Ritalin is crack. Right. Ritalin, according to the DEA, is classified in the same category as cocaine and opium. It's one molecule away from crack. Ritalin is crack. Why would you give a child synthesized cocaine but lock his father up for selling? If it's good enough to help the child, it should be good enough to sell in the corner. The truth of the matter is it ain't good for the father to sell it, and it ain't good for you to give it to the child. But why the father selling in the first place? If the CIA didn't bring crack into the black community in the 1970s, you would have no black men in jail for selling dope. All drugs is regulated by the CIA. That's why we call it CIA, Cocaine Import Agency.
Well, on that note, Dr. Umar Johnson. Oh, this was
tomorrow, 1 o'clock, African American Research Library. First visit since 2014. South Florida, I'm here. Stand up. And if there's any schools for sale down here,
If there's any schools for sale down here, you need to take a picture of that school, take a picture of the contact phone number, and text it to my cell phone, 215-989-9858. Because I'm still looking for that school. Detroit right now looks like it's going to be the place because they have more schools. But I still want to make a wholesome decision. So if you know of a school that's been sitting there, you think it's up for sale, you see some information on it, send that to Dr. Umar, because maybe the school needs to be in South Florida. It's up to the people.
That would be great. Dr. Umar Johnson, it's truly a pleasure. The conversation was dope. I appreciate you. Continue doing what you're doing. I'm just honored to have you here on Probation Station. I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I appreciate your controversy. And you know, continue doing you. It is what it is, and that's just how it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell
the truth and shame the devil.
To all my listeners, my followers, I truly appreciate you. Again, this is Mona Lisa Weber, probationstation.com. Much love to all of you. Tomorrow, African American Research Library in Fort Lauderdale. Come check out Dr. Umar Johnson. Again, hit me up on probation.